You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
And the reality is this: if families wanting to not have to work 2, 3, even 4 jobs in some households to meet their basic needs, if that's progressive, so be it.
Way below acceptable.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. It's your host, Erika Washington, and I am really super excited about today's conversation. I am speaking with an old friend, old colleague, someone who I have known for a number of years. And I thought this was a really timely conversation because she recently ran for the first time for a state Senate seat in the state of Michigan for District 3. But before that, she worked with Higher Heights for America, as well as Mothering Justice, which has been a friend of Make It Work Nevada and the podcast for a number of years. But I want to welcome Eboni Taylor for her also first time being on Sticky Note Conversation.
Yes.
So welcome. Yeah.
Hey, Sticky Note folks, how y'all doing out there? Yes, I'm excited, Erika, to be on with you. And yes, we do go way back. And I'm sure folks, of course, know you're from Detroit. So, of course, there's that piece.
Forever and always. I try to
Yes.
make sure I mention that at least once a week to somebody. Somebody needs to know.
Yeah, so they know. We go hard for Detroit. We love Detroit down. And so I'm excited to be on with you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, same. And so I wanted to have you on. Originally, we were trying to get you on while you were still in the midst of your race, but that's always hard because it takes up so much time to try to run for office because you're also a mother. You also have other responsibilities. You're not just out there running. But now the primary is over, and although you may not move on to the general, I thought it would still be a great conversation to have because, like I've said before, it's not always just about winning a particular race. It's about uplifting conversations, policy. It's making sure people understand what's going on. And there's still room for winning, right? And so, but I wanted to ask you before we jump into all that, because I did mention, you've done a lot of things, but from your point of view, when you walk into a room, who is Eboni Taylor? What do you want people to know about you first and foremost?
First and foremost, I want, especially with, coming out of this campaign and even before this campaign, I want people to know that my most important role, the most important piece of me is being a mother. I think it is such a special gift that God gives us. And there's a whole host of responsibilities that come along with that. And that's how I looked at my campaign. I was actually very, very proud. As you just mentioned, right, winning isn't everything, but I am very proud that we won in the sense of being able to put motherhood front and center in a race. Usually moms, especially in my work at Higher Heights, where I still was able to maintain my job there throughout this campaign, but I work with Black women candidates all over the country, and motherhood isn't always... It isn't excluded, but it's not necessarily put front and center as the primary sort of reason for running. And so that's what I did with my campaign. That's what I'll continue to do, is put motherhood first, because so many things come from that. We know moms get things done. We know moms, when they're healthy and when they're doing well, they impact their families in a positive way. They impact whole communities in a positive way. And so what I was able to do with this run was infuse more of that power into the role of mothers and into the role of motherhood. And I hope that it inspires other women, whether, women of color or not. I hope it inspires more women to say, wow, I'm a mom and I'm a boss and I can put this front and center and bring out all of the elements and all of the values that come out of leading with motherhood. And so very proud about that. And I consider that a win.
I think that very much is a win. So tell me a little bit about Michigan State Senate District 3. That a part of that is in the city of Detroit, or is it all in the city of Detroit?
It's mostly Detroit. It is the entire east side of Detroit proper. It was also redistricted I think in 24. So to take place top of 27 for whoever, wins the race. Senator Stephanie Chang, who's finishing out her final term, she's term limited. Her district looks so oblong and just gerrymandered. It looks all over the place. And so in 24, they made it a more concentrated district, which is, as I started to say, the entire east side of Detroit proper. So it doesn't bleed into like Grosse Pointe, Harper Woods, any of the east side suburbs. It's all of the east side of Detroit. It's also a portion of the west side of Detroit. So namely like Sherwood Forest, Palmer Woods, Green Acres, etc. Cluster of neighborhoods on the west side. Then also 2 other cities, Highland Park and Hamtramck, which, as you know, Erika, are situated like in the middle of Detroit. It's
right.
Not that my hand illustration was helpful.
But it's like a city inside of a city.
Exactly. It's a couple of cities inside of Detroit. And so it included the very diverse cities of Highland Park and Hamtramck, where, in Hamtramck specifically, you have, Yemeni and Bangladesh populations. And, it's very diverse. So it's really great going into Hamtramck, knocking doors, going into Highland Park, and really seeing the beauty of it was beautiful seeing the diversity of folks, but really the diversity of issues. Not that that didn't exist, but what I found was that everybody was experiencing the same thing. And so,
and what were the top issues? What were the top issues that you heard?
As you can imagine, top one was affordability. I mean, Michigan, a lot of folks are moving here from California, from New York, because they want a more affordable, some folks escaping climate change even, or, rising cost of living. And Michigan is pretty okay in terms of cost of living if you're coming from more expensive places. But when you consider folks who've been here in the state, the cost of living is increasing. And so folks are wondering how to decrease, until wages increase, right? We can't hold our breath for that. But in the meantime, we can say, hey, how can we lower utility rates? How can we lower property taxes? How can we lower car insurance rates? And so those were the things I was hearing. How do we get universal child care? Those were the things I was hearing on the doors, especially amongst younger families who, they finally moved into their dream home. But if you're in the city of Detroit, property taxes are astronomical. And then you have child care on top of that, which competes with in-state tuition, college tuition. So those were the things I was hearing. Folks want to stay here. They want to thrive here. But it is difficult to do so when, you buy the same batch of groceries every week or every couple of weeks, and the price, nothing changes about what you're buying, but the total cost is going up and up and up. And so that was the main thing I was hearing.
What made you decide to run? You've been working in the political realm for a good long time, whether that was on policy or organizing and what have you. But what made you decide to actually say, I think I could be the one to do this job and lead?
Yeah. Well, it started with Erika. So I mentioned Senator Stephanie Chang earlier. She is on her way out the door. She's term limited. And she actually approached me and recruited me to run, to which I promptly said no. Initially said no. And she, we continued to talk. But once I really dug into it and looked at the landscape, I said, oh, wow. There are 38 Senate seats in the state Senate seats. And at least 3 state senators are moms and they're term limited. So it was not only Senator Stephanie Chang, it was also Senator Erika Geis, also Senator Sylvia Santana. And so that really sort of made my antennas go up because I said, I know for a fact that I worked with these women on increasing the visibility of Black maternal health and mortality. I worked with these women on earned paid sick time. I worked with these women on issues while, especially at Mothering Justice, what we called our mama's agenda. And wow, if that mama's voice isn't there, how do we get working families issues across the finish line? How do we get more visibility? How do we move the needle? How do we get these resolutions passed if we don't have those critical voices? And so people can recruit you all day, but you have to still want to do it. And that was the thing, Erika, that made me want to do it, knowing that I will be coming with a pure heart to politics. And I think that matters because we have such a dearth of values. We have a dearth of folks who are moving with an ethical compass, a moral compass. And that has been concerning to me. It'll continue to be concerning to me. Had I won the primary, it would be something that I would feel like I'm jumping into the lion's den, right? As someone who is leading with, as pure of a heart as I can for working families. I would say on the doors, I would say, hey, I have a job. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not trying to be the next Michigan political superstar. I really am here because my career has been a testament to why I'm here and why I want to represent this district. And so, yeah, that's why I ran, because I really wanted to stand 10 toes down on the issues that matter. Right before we started recording this conversation, we were talking about the progressive piece, and folks, wanted to so badly put me in that progressive space or label, give me that label. And the reality is this: if families wanting to not have to work 2, 3, even 4 jobs in some households to meet their basic needs, if that's progressive, so be it. But the reality is that none of what we talked about on doors, on calls, at community events are outlandish things. These are things that everyday people who pay taxes, who go to work every day, who want to see their children thrive and their families thrive. These are things that they cared about. And so I felt that I was the best person situated in that race to lift those issues up. I've been working on many of them for most of my career, and win or lose, I'll continue to.
Yeah, I struggle with the title progressive, right? Like, I feel like I'm not sure what people mean by that sometimes. And I think, especially when we're talking specifically about Black folks or women or even immigrants or what have you, it's just like, what is progressive? Like, what are you actually saying? Because all of these things sound like baseline necessities. It's not, you're not asking for the moon. Having access to affordable childcare, having access to a living wage and affordable housing and quality public school systems and clean water and utility assistance. That's not special.
Yeah.
That's the floor, not the ceiling. But those are all within like those progressive values, I guess. And so I hear you when you say that, you getting put in a box. And I wonder sometimes, is this box meant to other people? Because I think you have the progressives, or you have the socialists or what have you. It's like, well, what does that even mean? And so why is socialism such a bad word? Because what we do for the most part is a lot of socialism when you talk about having access to public welfare programs, and any sort of crowdsourcing to be able to help someone get what they need, community resources. It's all socialism.
Yeah. And I think too, Erika, is that like, we're so used to, as a country, we're so used to what we've just been given that it's like we don't even have space to dream and to really think about what our tax dollars are actually going to, right? We look at our nation's budget. We look at even the budget in Michigan. What are our tax dollars going to? One of the things that I wanted to do, and I can still do, right, is really educate folks around politics, educate folks around what state senators even do. I got on doors and folks were getting my race mixed up with the U.S. Senate race. I'm like, I'm not running against Abdul El Sayed and Haley Stevens. And I think if people understood more around like where their tax dollars went, you would be like, huh, excuse me? I want my money to go towards helping my community. I want my money to go towards not having jacked up sidewalks and jacked up roads. And I went into a school, a Detroit public school. The ceiling was leaking for an event, right? And I'm a proud product of Detroit public schools, but this is where our money should be going to, and it's not. Especially when you look at the national level, in endless wars and asking for a greater budget for wars when our kids are suffering, everyday working families are suffering. And when you really put it into perspective, we're not asking for much. We're not saying, give us the word. You said the moon and the star. We're not even asking for that. We're saying, I want to go to work, come home, enjoy my family, maybe afford a vacation, maybe afford to go up north, drive up north to Michigan with my family in the summertime and, have a 9 to 5 and I have to get off at 5 and make it to my job at 6 to work 6 to midnight or 6 to 1. And so, again, like those are not, if you want to call them progressive, fine. If it has to fit somewhere, but it's absolutely a mindset shift, I believe, and education, I believe, that like if people knew more, they would demand more of their government and they would demand more of how their dollars that they're working so hard for 2 and 3 jobs for, how their dollars are being used. And it was really hard to combat that progressive label, especially with Bernie Sanders jumping into Michigan and saying, hey, I want to endorse Eboni Taylor. I was like, okay, great, But it was, even if you Google the race now, you'll see a Detroit Free Press article come up like, how did the progressives do? And it's a picture of Bernie, and then it talks about each race, most of the races that he chimed in on. And it was like, I wasn't asked to be the progressive candidate. I just wanted to be the candidate that stood up for working families.
Right. So you're labeled without your permission in a way. Basically, and it doesn't. Yeah. And sometimes I think people just hear the label and they don't listen to the
what
voice
or
right. Or look at your website to see like, what does that even mean? They just say, oh, progressive. Well, they're out there wanting to, whatever. They just want to have a free for all. Yeah. One of the things that came up or thought that came up when you talked about people, things they were mentioning on the doors, was like high utility prices. Yeah. And this makes me think about recently there's a story in the news of a family in North Carolina that died. They didn't have their electricity. Their electricity was turned off. They had like a $2,000 bill. They offered to try to make payments. They had up to like $1,000, and that wasn't enough for the utility company to turn it back on. So they were using generators. Sounds like they might have been kerosene or gas generators.
Yeah.
And the 3 people died in this home, and the actual cause of death, I was looking and I haven't seen what they're saying it is, but the assumption is it has something to do with these generators. So maybe it was the fumes or what have you, in order to keep it cool because the weather had been so hot there. So they're trying to keep it cool with fans and what have you. And it makes me think about the basic necessities again. I know that in the wintertime, you can't turn the utilities off when it's really cold, but it's not the same when it's hot unless it's over 105, 110 degrees. And it may not make it to that, but that doesn't mean that it's still too hot for
It's
people
still
to
unbearable.
survive.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know the ages of these folks or if they had other underlying health conditions, but it makes me think again about this. This isn't a progressive conversation. This is a human rights conversation. And to have access to utilities, air, water, and heating and cooling should not be something that is taken away from somebody because they can no longer afford it. Because the rate hikes are the rate hikes. And I also always say, I can't really argue with the utility company about how much consumption I'm using. You can say you read the meter and you can tell me what these megahertz are and how many I use. I can't combat that. I don't know. I really don't know, right? Even if I unplug everything, I don't know how much everything should be used, what the number should be compared to what it is. So if you tell me that it's 500, I just have to believe you.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is, too, like we're dealing with this in Detroit. There's so much dilapidated infrastructure. There's a very recent conversation around nearly a third of Detroit homes have inadequate or very, very old, antiquated sewer lines from the street to their homes. And so this Mary Sheffield, little tongue twister there, she is working to get relief for at least in this first round up to 9,000 Detroit homes who have those dilapidated structures. But we're talking quality. We're talking the quality of the infrastructure, and we're talking like reading the meters. Is it even accurate? Am I getting a bunch of lead in my water because it's so old? And then on top of that, I'm being charged out the wazoo because it's so antiquated that it's not accurate. And so, older cities and older places that haven't invested in infrastructure, that's another huge piece of the utilities conversation. Even with DTE. DTE is one of the most expensive utilities, I want to say, in the country, definitely top 3. But yeah, here we are. Every time, the wind whistles, not even blows, people are out of power. People are losing food. People are losing medicine. And people die as a result of that. And so I think there's not only that piece of it, but it's the conversation around, we're paying all this money and it's not even going to improve our structures, improve our infrastructure, improve our cities and our states' ability to accurately serve the basic needs, let alone charge people appropriately. And one other thing about DTE and the utilities piece is that on the campaign trail, I was the only person out of my 11-person race that actually successfully worked to get the Michigan Public Service Commission to deny DTE a rate hike. When I worked on the coalition to defend Black voters back in 22-23, we showed up at all the Michigan Public Service Commission meetings and said, look, deny DTE this rate hike because look at how folks are out of power every time the wind whistles or the wind blows. Folks are not getting getting payment for food loss, medication loss. And so that was the last time they were denied a rate hike back when I worked on that coalition. And so that was something we were proud to lift up on the campaign trail, but it's certainly getting out of hand. I know that was a long response, but
no, it makes sense. I mean, I guess my thought is like, how do we hold utility companies responsible? Where is that a state thing, or is that more of a local city thing, or is that just going to the utility commission meetings, which I doubt very many people ever go to or have access to? Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I think it's a both and, because you have this commission, which is, I believe, comprised of 3 to 4 people that the governor appoints to the commission. These folks are not neutral. I believe there needs to be like an everyday community leader on these commissions to speak up for working families. That hasn't been the case. One of the things that I talked about was wanting to either do away with the commission altogether and think of a community approach. I know some folks were talking about turning it into elected positions, but I think that's opportunity for folks to get for money to enter into those races as well. But I think it's a both and thing. Certainly in DTE's case, they're a monopoly, right? It's only 2 utility companies in Michigan, Consumers and DTE. And DTE is by far the largest. And so working on reducing their hold on the market was one thing. And then the other approach was going to be, how do we deal with this Michigan Public Service Commission panel? And how do we put a voice and insert a voice that will speak up for the issues that the consumers are dealing with? So I hope we do. I hope we can figure out something, because it's so completely out of hand. And then you look at DTE's, you look at their profits. I mean, the record profits, for 2025, coming into 26, record profits. They're actually on a pathway to do the same thing for 2026. Record profits, but
and why should there be a profit?
Yeah.
Why should there be a profit for a utility company? That should, if anything should be a nonprofit, it should be a utility company, because the fact that we're owning or trying to own resources, whether that's
natural resources,
or air, right? Natural resources, air, and solar, and all of that, it really boggles my mind.
Yeah. And there's some great examples of community-owned utilities like Wyandotte here in Michigan, more like downriver, like south of Detroit. They have community utility. And guess what? When that wind whistled the last couple times, when that wind blew here in Michigan, and thousands were out of power in Detroit, in the Metro Detroit area, Wyandotte still had power. Community-owned power. And then using solar and using all the natural remedies that help to even reduce having to pay for manufactured electricity. And there are other examples of that around the country too. But of course, your DTEs and your consumers, they don't want to see that.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Hey y'all, my name is Eboni Taylor, and you are listening to Sticky Note Conversations.
So let's talk a little bit about Michigan as a whole. Why is Michigan such an important state? Because it's been a swing state for a number of years. And although this is a midterm election, it's still really important, the outcome of both the state and federal offices that are running there. And then with an eye towards 2028, it will also still be a really important player across the country.
I mean, Michigan is, when you think about this U.S. Senate race, it's been sucking all the air out the room. It was hard.
Do you think that's deserving? Do you think that's deserving that it takes up so much oxygen?
I don't think so, because I think, as we say, all politics is local. And yes, you can argue like, oh, that's our Michigan delegation. Like, it's still local, it's still state. Yeah. But, when you think about these state Senate races, when you think about these state rep races it was hard to raise money. It was hard to get airtime. It was hard to get media attention because of it. These are the races that most impact people the quickest, the fastest, right? Your local leaders are the ones who are the closest to you, the most accessible to you, right? And so I don't think it's deserved. And of course, there's not going to be any immediate remedy for that, because it's such a hot topic, right? Especially with Abdul El Said, but potentially about to make history, and already has, right, made history. But then also, if he wins this, making history as the first Muslim, U.S. senator to come out of Michigan. And I want to even say whatever those numbers might be of our entire U.S. Senate body, right, and historically speaking as well. So it's not deserved, but I don't see it changing. We're going to be hearing a lot about this race until the bitter end. But as we know, Michigan, is hard to exclude Michigan from the larger discourse, especially as we go on to 2028. And I think that's why, too, that there's so much attention to the state, not only because of the history-making races, but also because Michigan, it can go either way. I mean, 24, Trump won Michigan, but at the same time, Alyssa Slotkin won, right? She won the U.S. Senate seat. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. I don't know. It's so much to say about it. But for now, we need to be prepared for this huge fight that Abdul has against Mike Rogers, who technically lives in Florida. And
really?
Yeah, he technically lives in Florida. It's a couple of articles I've read about his home there. But what's even more interesting is that we had a Detroit City Council person meet with Mike Rogers recently and said he has some good points. And it's this play on this divide of like, Black Michiganders there was a bit of that even in the state Senate races, right? Like the Arab and Black divides. And so we're seeing that play out here. Is like, Abdul hasn't been doing well in Detroit. Some of the latest polling that I saw had him, had Haley Stevens way like with a double-digit lead above him.
Now,
Black voters.
Is there something to that besides the obvious of division of non-white people that is usually wedged on purpose, or is he disconnected from the Black community? Has there been any outreach there? Like how does that show up?
Man, we're being recorded, right? I think that there could have been, and there still needs to be, a more concerted effort, a more intentional effort for Detroit, specifically in Metro Detroit. Some folks I was on doors with, or not even with, but folks I talked to on doors, some of them were like, I haven't even had anyone from Abdul's camp come to my door yet. And I thought that was very interesting, because these are conversations happening in July at this point. So someone from Abdul's camp should have been at your door. So I think that, without being too critical, that I hope that going into November, we see an uptick of his campaign making more efforts to connect with Black voters.
Do you think that's about resources, or is it about just not seeing the importance of this?
I think you'll hear him say. I think you'll hear him say in conversations that, yes, Haley Stevens had this AIPAC machine behind her, infusing $60 to $70 million into that primary, right? True, but also there was still absent, I think, or not to the degree that maybe it was a resource thing. But now that he's won this primary, that's why I say I hope to see an uptick. I do think that there was a bit of, let's just kind of see how Detroit pans out, right? Because he did not get Detroit, right? And that's in the primary. He didn't get a lot of Metro Detroit in the primary. And I hope that he understands that in order to get it, there has to be some changes. And I don't know if it's a trusted messenger who leads the work in Southeast Michigan, which includes Detroit and some of the surrounding suburbs. But there has to be a real change in the strategy there to meet Black voters where they are. And I think it's around talking about the issues that they care about. And it's not around lifting up. I think the AIPAC conversation is important, and I think the Israel conversation is important. But I think there's a both and there that folks need to see themselves in the policies that he's lifting up, which, Medicaid, Medicare for all, yes. Get money out of politics, yes. But the money out of politics piece even loses people because it's not fully understood how that impacts folks' day to day.
No, that makes sense. I'm hoping to be able to have him on the show as well, because I think that it's really important to hear from as many people as possible, especially because we are laying the foundation for long-term change, right? And not just in Michigan, but across the country. It requires a concerted effort of folks to elect people who have not necessarily the same agenda, but similar agendas and voices of folks across the country so that these things can happen and work together in unison. Because what happens in one state does affect what happens in another state.
Mm-hmm.
I am wondering, though, in thinking about this idea of, for lack of a better word, progressive, or just the opposite of moderate, people who are pushing for more, and some people are calling them democratic socialists. And there are folks winning in Minnesota. There have been races in Wisconsin and elsewhere. While also at the exact same time, there is seems to be an internal appetite for moderation within the Democratic Party. And I don't know if that's a winning recipe to move backwards, because that's how it looks to me personally.
Yes.
To me, like, moderation sounds like a diet. So if you're on this diet politics of, we're just going to do this little bit, that sounds to me more like you're scared of actual progress. And that's not being progressive. And it's also not helping anybody get out of this rut that they're in. Just wondering your thoughts around, like, just the political landscape as a whole. Like, what needs to happen? Whether it's even a Democratic Party at all, right? So there's also a lot of folks who have left the Democratic Party and left the Republican Party and just wanting to be identified as independents or nonpartisan voters. How do we center the voices of those who are marginalized the most and actually have quality policies that actually create change and give people an opportunity for a better life?
I think that's the work that lies ahead for the Democratic Party. It is a very, I hate this word, but it's a very lazy approach to, I think, leadership, to say, let's lie somewhere in the middle so we kind of satisfy everybody. And that's not what people are asking for. As we've discussed basically throughout the length of this conversation, is that working families are wondering when their turn is. They're wondering when policies will show up at their porch, at their front door, at their side door, right? When will politics work for them? And that's the allure, I would argue, of a Trump or a MAGA approach. It's by any means, this is what you want. This is what the people want. We know it ain't right. We know it ain't good. We know it's racist. We know it's misogynist. We know it's all these things, but it is also appealing to, I hate to say it, but it's appealing to a demographic. And, but working families is a larger demographic, right? People of color is a larger demographic. And the Democratic Party isn't honing in on the superpower that lies within this very vast and this very big group. And I think it's because a part of it, not everything, but a part of it is look at the structure of the Democratic Party itself. Does it even comprise of people that look like you and me and that have forget the look, that even have the experiences of us and the communities that we serve? It doesn't. When you look at even how much they spent in 24 and how much they spent on Black media, it paled in comparison to how much was spent on media that didn't appeal and that didn't reach Black voters. And so I think that the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do to really show up and show that they care enough to put forth an agenda and a strategy that actually speaks to a very huge swath of folks that actually can exhibit and make for a powerful change in this country. It's just that we have to put the machine behind that. We have to put the resources behind that. We have to put the strategy behind that. And we're not.
And there has to be a point where they actually ask the people what they want, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
And so
that's a part of it.
There's a lot of bubbles, right? Mm-hmm. And people are in these bubbles, Democrat, and when I say I mean establishment party folks who go to Central Committee meetings and are delegates and go to conventions and that sort of thing, and people in the D-Trip and all that. They live inside bubbles where, and a lot of times I do honestly think they believe that they are amongst the people, and they have to realize they are not. It's been a long time. They've actually just talked to regular people who don't know anything about the inner workings of the party at all, or how it even functions, and don't care. They have they have no desire to even learn about that. You need to talk to those folks and ask them what they need and want.
Even this division that we're seeing inside the party, Erika, like the socialists and all the Gen Zers and millennials who are winning, and you can see the snarling in terms of attitude, right? Not necessarily an actual snarl, but just the turning up of like noses to this new wave of leadership that really should be embraced. Again, with the titles, not a fan of the socialist this and the progressive that and all of that. But wow, look at how many young folks are excited. Look at how many young folks want to be involved in the conversation. Look at how many young folks are running. We were proud of a Max Frost, right? When he came in and he was the youngest person to, and a Lauren Underwood, right? We were excited about that. And we should still be excited, right? We should still be excited for the Daria Lizas and the Malats and, right? And the Donovan McKinneys, right? Who are coming up and who want to see real changes for working families. How does the Democratic Party take that and hone in and get laser focused on, wow, this is the future of our party? Do we agree on everything? We never will. We never have. But how do we take this passion that we're seeing coming out of millennials and Gen Zers and move our party forward and really put some excitement and passion back into the Democratic base? That's the question that I think it should be put out there, and that's the work that again lies ahead for the party.
So, Eboni, a question I ask everyone, and I think it's an appropriate point in this conversation. How do you define democracy? What is it? And do you think we have it?
I think that we have it to a degree. But let me, I guess, go back a little bit. I think democracy means that everyone has a voice. Everyone has a voice in the future of this great country, in this great state. I mean, I know I'm here in Michigan, you're in Nevada, but everyone has a voice wherever they are. And I would say we have it partially and that we have a long way to go. One of the things, I was just talking to my best friend who's born and raised in Detroit, but she's been living in Los Angeles. I had my literature and I had a QR code on my literature. And when I would get it up to young folks, I would say, hey, are you 18? And they would say, yeah, I'm 19, I'm 20. do I scan this to vote for you? I said, no, you can't scan that. That's just going to take you to my website, or that's just going to take you to a way to contribute to the campaign. You have to either request a mail-in ballot to vote at home. You can go into an early voting location a week before the election, or you can go into your actual voting location that you're assigned based on your precinct. And it really hit me because I got that so often, Erika. Do I follow this to vote for you? Because that's the future. That is, we should make voting and ways for people to make their voice heard. We should make it more accessible, and we just simply don't. And so we're losing out on so many participants in our democracy. We're losing out on actually gaining the attention of our young folks, because if they find it too difficult to vote, then that also leads right to this process is too arduous. Why show up for anything else if to do one simple thing is difficult or is inaccessible? And so I think that we have a long way to go to get to a point where everyone feels that they have the ability and that there's care for their voices to be included in the discussion, in the greater discussion. And so I think partially, not all states have early voting. Not all states have mail-in ballots. And so for the state of Michigan, okay, good on us. But how do we as a country get to an even better place to think creatively about how to get folks interested in our politics and our discourse and the future of wherever people are? And I think when you have candidates that you're excited about, that's a good start. But if we then have processes that don't match, in the moment, it's a mismatch, and it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And I think also automatic voter registration, which is something that
absolutely
Nevada has specifically, as well as mail-in. And there's a lot of different ways in which you can make things happen here in Nevada. And I think we've all been really proud of the progress that we've made to make sure people have access. But there is still a lot of misinformation. There are folks, we have ridden the bus and talked to folks about voting and letting them know about upcoming elections and what have you. And people will say, oh, I already voted, or I just did, or what have you. And it's like, well, when? And they're confusing things and not understanding a primary versus the general versus a midterm versus the presidential and all of that, on top of when auto voter reg is done. If they don't assign themselves a party, then they're automatically assigned to nonpartisan, and then realizing they can't vote in the primaries because they are marked as nonpartisan, all of these things. But what that also to me comes down to is civic education. And it's been a while since I've been in school. I know that there was some when I was there, but not to the degree in which that I understand how things work now. And I was a person who enjoyed civics education, government class, all of that. Many folks don't. And I get it. But without having that baseline understanding of how things work in your state, how laws are made, how policies are pushed through, how amendments are done at the during elections. I keep wanting to say box office. In my head, I'm like at the box office. But if you're voting on different amendments or ballot measures, understanding what that process is, there's so many components, and some of it is overly confusing for no reason too, right? Like it's cumbersome
100%.
because, and I think that scares people. So no different than trying to put together something from IKEA. You're like, oh, that's a lot of directions. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Right. It's too many pieces. And you're like, I can't do that, and so it's the same thing. So making it easier, but also just making it simplistic, because also everyone doesn't have the same reading level. Also, what I've learned over the years of canvassing and talking to people, and you realize there are a lot of folks who are at this point functionally illiterate for a lot of different reasons. And how do we make sure that they still have access to the ballot, and understanding the difference between this candidate versus that candidate, being able to recognize all of that if they don't have some of the abilities to decipher language in the ways others do.
Mm-hmm. No, 100% agree. I mean, when you look at the fact that our systems haven't changed over, I mean, essentially ever. I mean, you know, you
250 years.
Yeah, 200, as we celebrate, recently celebrated 250 years. Yeah, it's not much has changed. We offer more opportunities to, okay, you can still you can come in early, you can do your mail-in ballot, but I'm positive we can think more creatively and more innovatively around how to get more folks involved. And like I said at the top of this conversation, definitely want to figure out how, even, and not winning my race and not winning my primary, how to get more young folks educated around civics. And there's a program called Girls Making Change that Senator Stephanie Chang, started years ago, that I helped to lead when we used to sit on the board together. But it is essentially for high school girls of color who are in 11th to 12th grade. They do weekend programming. They have sessions where they learn about the process of how laws are made, and then they shadow a woman of color who's in Michigan State Legislature. And so that's a start, but we really need more. Like Detroit Public Schools needs a civics program that is standardized. That, and not to get into the weeds here, but it is absolutely, I saw that every single day. Someone confused me, a group, if you will. It was a handful of people every time that confused my race with the U.S. Senate race, or
not knowing there's a difference between a state Senate and a U.S. Senate.
Yeah, a state race and a federal race, just that simple distinction. And so there's a whole lot more. And some groups rely on the ignorance of the people, right? And I wouldn't even put that past our party, right? Like, some folks want you to stay out. Some folks want you to stay home, stay disconnected. And just back to your original question, that is what I would call, that's undemocratic, right? For us to want people to stay out and want them to stay out on purpose. They actually have structures set up so that they do just that. And so I think our future leaders, especially folks who do care about working families, that is a part of it too. It's the policies, yes, it's the issues, the kitchen table things, but it's also, how do we get more people to say, this is what I want? So that it sends a message not only to our party, the Democratic Party, but it sends a message to this entire country. When more people are very aware of what's going on around them, how their taxes are being used, et cetera, right? The more people that wake up, the more we send that message.
And so another question that I always ask folks, the American dream, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different things that people think about when they say, what is the American dream? Specifically, though, I like to ask folks what your version of the American dream looks like.
That's a really good question, Erika. Yeah. That's a very good question. Growing up, you always hear the American dream is a white picket fence. You own a home. You got a little doggy. It's this picturesque, idealistic, utopian thing. But the American dream, in my eyes, is when America can dream. When you can actually have enough mental capacity and you are not so bogged down with trying to get your basic needs met, that you actually have a little bit of space and a little bit of time and the rest to dream. And we are seeing that more people want the ability to dream. More people want the ability to have joy in their lives instead of leading with what they're missing, instead of leading with the deficits. I don't have this, I don't have that, I need this, I need that. That's not what people want their lives to be. That's not what folks want their everyday to be consumed with. Folks want the ability to rest. They want the ability to get quality rest, and they want the ability to sleep deep enough, right, to dream. They want to not be startled awake by, did I pay the rent? Did I get the, is my light bill gonna get cut off tomorrow? And do I have enough food in the fridge for breakfast for the kids in the morning? Those are the things that keep you up, that don't let you rest, and that don't allow you to dream. So my version of an American dream is for people to have a calm and have a sense of, you know, my basic needs are being taken care of. My government is using my money wisely, and I can actually put my attention towards how to thrive and how to create new experiences for my kids, how to invest, how to, learn a new language. I don't know, but whatever their dreams are.
Do you think you'll run again?
I've gotten that question at least a bajillion times.
I bet. Once you've done it once, they're like, so when you about to put yourself out there again and tear up your schedule and make it where you can't sleep enough and you out here raising money.
And people are like, oh, you got your name ID. And if I could just say real quickly, really super proud. I know I talked at the top about being proud of running as a mom and putting motherhood in the forefront of this race. I'm also very proud that, Erika, we won all of election day votes. Anybody who showed up on election day, I was the top vote getter out of the 11 people, including myself. And, it's 11 including me. But I was the top vote getter on election day. I was the top vote getter for in-person early voting. So that week and a half ahead of election day. So very, very proud of that. And very, very proud that I was able to beat out the candidate who was endorsed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I essentially tied for 19% of the vote with someone who was a former state senator, someone who, right before he got in this race, was in a statewide race, who has massive, name ID. And so we came in a very, very close third, almost, like I said, tied for second as a first-time candidate. So I'm very, very proud of that. And a lot of people think that because I have increased my name ID, I need to be thinking about the next thing. What you gonna do next? It's some county races, it's some this, it's some that. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm still processing and still debriefing and thinking about how things went with this one. And we'll see. I'm going to continue to pray about it, just like I prayed about entering in the race that we just completed. So to answer your question, I think potentially, I'll say potentially.
Gotcha. Well, Eboni, I want to first and foremost say congratulations on doing the thing. Doing the hard thing.
Thank you.
Knowing that from this side of the work and never having run for statewide anything, but I see it. I know what that looks like. It's a lot. It's a lot of investment of time. It's an investment into a community, but also it takes away from your day-to-day with your family, right? And that can be really, really hard. You're going to miss something, because we can't be everywhere all the time. But your commitment to the work and to your community and into your family and the longevity of it all, it shows. And I do hope that you decide that whatever pathway you go, that it continues on to be that investment, because that could be through an elected office or not, because there's a lot of different ways in which to make things happen. But I think that also what I think I want people to like really see is just the positivity that you still have about it, because not winning can hurt.
Yeah.
But also, because there's a lot of time, again, a lot of time and effort and money to put into something and not get the outcome that you would really want. Especially when you said no. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then you change your mind, you decide to do it. And so to still have that positivity and know that if you decide to do it again, that, you learn from this race, but you see room for improvement and that you could possibly do it again in another seat. So that resilience is also important. And you're just a smart person. So smart people should be doing all the smart things and guiding us to our true destinies and where we need to be. So I'm appreciative of you and the time that you took to run for state senate in Michigan, and also appreciative for you to be on Sticky Note Conversations. Yeah. And hopefully you can come back again. I think there's plenty of things to talk about. Like, I am looking forward to, I always call the election seasons. That's my football. Like, that's where I'm like trying to figure out, I'm like, what's going on, and, have some of those deeper conversations around what's happening and what should be happening and what's missing to help give people real-time understanding of what politics is and what it's not. Because there are plenty of people who also believe that they are not political or they don't involve themselves in politics, but there's no way around it. There's no way not to be political. There's no way politics is happening to you. If you're not in it, it's still happening to you. So,
and them laws are still going to impact you. The public policy is still going to reach you.
Politics
whether you like it or
politicking. Not. Mm-hmm. All of that. But again, I appreciate your time and that you have given to be on this episode of Sticky Note Conversation. So thank you once again.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Erika. And you're somebody, if I can say, you've always been someone, like, I just remember so well when we first met. I was like, man, she is smart. I like her, and this was, I think, even before I realized you were from Detroit. And with shortly thereafter, I knew.
I was going to say the essence had to come out at some point.
Immediately after, I found out about it. But I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate your leadership and appreciate you having a platform and creating this platform for voices like mine to just have a moment to, especially in this post-election, at least for me, being done with my campaign. I appreciate it. And I thank you for your leadership and everything that you're doing to lift up voices that don't always have, a platform and a place to be. So I really do mean that. And I value our friendship and the work that we've done together too.
Oh, thank you, Eboni. Well, y'all, this has been Sticky Note Conversations, and I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erika Washington. With editing by Black Gypsy LLC. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada,